Hey, folks, it's Lindsay Hudson with SPS back in the building for another SPS Edge Show, and I got my crew with me on deck. Got Coach Orlando Watkins, got Terry McCord Jr., and we're back at it again for another show. It's good to see you guys. Terry, how you doing, man?
I'm good. School is wrapped up, so I'm ready for my 2 month break, and I'm right back at it. So I get to make sure I get my 8 hours every night.
Yeah, I know. I do see the campus is clear right now. The students was moving out, and my daughter likes to say that now I'm the youngest person in East Lansing right now. I said that's good, baby. That's good. And how you doing? I'm sorry, guys. And how you doing, Orlando? What's good with you?
Doing good. Just fighting a good fight, Lindsay.
You always fight a good fight. You always got something you working on, something you wrapping up, or something you getting ready for. That's it, right?
Yes, always. Stay on that treadmill.
You stay on it.
You got to keep banging into that wall till it finally falls.
So. Oh, it's going to come down. It's going to come down. Well, we'll get started, man. I hate to start on a sad note, man, but unfortunately, as you guys know, the sports world, particularly the Michigan State community, got rocked, man, with sad news of just a few days ago. Adreian Payne, much loved by the Michigan State Spartan community, passed away. We'll talk about that. But AP, I remember seeing him a few years ago. He was at home at Michigan State doing some workouts with our guy Rodney Hurd. Getting ready either for overseas trip, man. And it's one thing to hear about the tragic death, Terry. And Orlando, I know you know as well, man. But the other part is that once you start peeling back the layers and you hear the backstory on it, man, I'm really disappointed in how this happened. Anytime anyone loses life is a horrible thing, man. But, you know, to give the backstory for our viewers and listeners who don't know, from what I understood from the news report that his girlfriend, his significant other, called him to go intervene in her girlfriend's domestic situation. And when he got there, the male figure and the male figure's father that was involved with her girlfriend's friend, and I think I said all that correctly, was the one who fired one single shot, and that killed him. And one thing, we want to celebrate his life, but secretary, man, we gotta have a separate conversation, man, about, and you can't get involved nowadays out here, man. I mean, I know that's been an ongoing thing, and maybe I don't know what the percentage may be, but they talk about this masculinity and chivalry and going to render aid, and then people don't want to call the police because what might happen with the police, but police are the professionals that are trained to respond. And last thing, I'm going to say a mouthful to get both of you guys' opinion. It's almost like you got to check your relationship. If you're in a relationship where you got to call somebody to come intervene, and then you have the potential of that person coming to intervene, somebody losing their life, you got to check that. So overall, Terry, I'll just start with you, man. What do you think about hearing the news of Adreian Payne, AP, passing away, and also on the way he passed?
Man, it's disappointing. It's sad because, someone with such great character lost their life at such a young age, and everybody can definitely weigh in on how great he was as a person, but it just sucks, man, because the whole situation just makes you really think about your relationships and who's in your circle. Because I mean, at that point, AP, you got to kind of check what's going on and say, man, that has nothing to do with us. And my question would be, why didn't his girlfriend's friend, why didn't she call the police? I mean, what did she really expect AP to really do? Because I mean, she wanted AP to come in, obviously to help her out, which I understand coming from where, you want to have that support. But at the same time, it's like AP can only do so much. And when you bring someone and you calling somebody up, I'm sure that her boyfriend thought, oh, they getting somebody with a gun. It's just like, oh, anytime you call somebody up, it's either, to bring something or more people, so it's just something that you don't really want to get in unless you have to. And I think with those situations, I think, I'm sure they probably have seen something escalate like this in the past before, but it's just one of those things, man. You can't really always be the tough guy and always try to step in and intervene in that. You kind of just got to let it go and kind of let the police get involved. When it's something that serious where it's domestic violence, handling it civilly doesn't always work out. And it often leads to, further destruction within the relationship or with, as we see somebody dying.
Well, let me say this. Well put. As I get ready to bring you in, Orlando, I want to add a few things. Terry, I know there's somebody who's celebrating their birthday today.
Yeah.
It's important to you. Then the person who birthed her, your mother. So between them two women, and of course your dad, right on time. He goes, your dad, right on time. He said the friend and the guy are probably still together too.
Yeah.
That's my point.
Yeah.
That's my point. Orlando, this for you. I'll give you a line from The Godfather when Connie was going back and forth with her husband at the table, and he said something to her, and Sonny, jumped in, and the mother said, "Don't interfere." And it's not to say I'm condoning what's going on, but there's so many other things. And to Terry McCord Sr.'s point, they're probably still together. Let me tell you something. My mother and my daughter, the only one I'm getting locked and loaded and I'm riding down on you for. That's the only person I feel that through divine order I am responsible for to provide and protect for in that order. And it would be my wife the same way if I were married. But, man, pulling these people in, man, with these relationships, you know what I'm saying? And, like, come on in on that. As I read Pooh's point, what do you want? I want to read Pooh, then we'll get your start, Atlanta, because Pooh always has something good to contribute. Pooh said, let me ask, because me and my mom was talking this last night. If y'all seen a man beat my ass, right, do you help? My mama said, y'all should call the police unless you're close to me. Exactly. And that's the whole point. And Pooh, I thank you for that great illustration because men get challenged with their masculinity. Y'all need to jump in that. Okay, he whooping on your ass. I jump in. He may be like, oh, you the dude that was messing with her? You the dude cheat? He just may be gone and he pull out a gun and shoot me. And then, Pooh, with all due respect, whether it's you or anyone outside of my immediate family, like the people I just mentioned, who am I to get in that to know that whole backstory and why you involve me in that? Oh, you got to go, man. You got to just jump in there and help. I don't know what can happen. It's not to say I'm okay with him beating on you, but I'm not that invested in the situation. And we got one more for you, Orlando, before we get you. Pooh also says, she said this because you all could lose your life getting in someone else's dispute. I know the man thing is going to go get the man off the woman, but you can do that because you never know. But you don't know what that man will do. Pooh, I thank you for that. I thank you for saying that because, Orlando, the problem we have, our masculinity gets called into question. Or you ain't a real man because I said, ain't that I'm a real man. I don't know what my man is holding. And to be honest, I'm not that committed. I ain't mad at you to want to fight. Okay? Shit, you didn't do shit to me. But it's unfortunate, Orlando. And also, and I throw a complicated question to you, Orlando. You're a coach of young ladies, so your umbrella of care extends a little bit further when it comes to making sure the girls get home, make sure everybody all right. So and then being a father of beautiful daughters as well. You got a lovely wife, whole situation. I just love to get your opinion on all this.
You just really, Lindsay, and it's really sad. And it kind of speaks to his character that he would pick up and go with his girlfriend into a situation like that. That speaks to his character. That shows that he truly cared, about her specifically, and really helping. But in that situation, you got to pick and choose your battles because I mean, at this point, especially down in Florida. I mean, that's really a bad situation. The sad part of it occurring down in Florida, you've got that stand your ground law in place. And will the guy even face justice? I mean, that's the question. Because, a person of his physical stature naturally is physically but visually intimidating. So it's just a sad situation. You really, really have to stop and think about what you're doing and really pick and choose your battles.
Yeah.
In Florida, they really need to kind of address that because in Florida, it's sad to say, but that's a daily occurrence.
Well,
in Florida, where you run into situations like that.
The brief information I saw was that the guy who shot Adreian Payne, because he was at the scene when the police arrived, he said he came over. He was intimidated by him. He said that he was going to smoke him. He thought he reached for a gun. Now, there are witnesses that contradict that statement and say he didn't say that. He didn't reach for a gun, whatever. But I do get that physical part. I had people call me, man, hey, man, my so-and-so at school at Michigan State having a problem with her. What, can you call Nick Ward to go over there or call, when I'm like, no, man, I can't do that. But that's what's asked upon these athletes to be these superheroes based on their size. But the other part of it is, that guy with the gun who, and let's be honest, man, America, we got guns upon guns upon guns. The women got guns. You don't know who got something or even a gun or a knife or how they're going to feel. And the last thing, as I get the hoop ball or scoop comment, when somebody is in a love rage when they're blinded by love and this affairs of the heart, that's how a mother can pick a car up to save their child. You can't even compare to that. And here you go, just as a casual person stepping in. Who Bought a Scoop said with the AP thing, don't y'all feel that the girl called Payne and his girlfriend over feels like it's her fault? Now your boyfriend in jail for life and Payne dead. This one, the guilt is going to be tremendous.
That's absolutely tremendous.
You can't get away, both of them, for the one who was dating the guy and the girlfriend. Because she said, come over here. Let's go. Don't bring your man in there. And I think at the outset of this, and I don't want AP's life being lost. Maybe this could be something where it's not lost. My mama got to say something. What mama got to say? Uh-oh. She say, AP girlfriend should never let her man go to intervene. Think about alive. Think everybody alive but AP. Yeah, you're right. Everybody's still alive, but the one they called to go help, they really didn't have to go.
And the thing is, Lindsay, is that the girlfriend was probably so scared to go by herself, and her girlfriend is please,
yeah.
Because of other accounts that I read, it was pretty much is that her friend was trying to avoid any type of physical confrontation, and which I don't understand. If you're trying to avoid physical confrontation, then you get your stuff, you get up, and you leave.
Yeah. Hey man,
I just don't understand it. And
to that point, let's go a little bit deeper. And if somebody get pissed, so be it. Problem is the toxicity of these relationships. That you in this relationship, where you got to worry about that, and you don't want to break wide, and you still go back, still go be with that person. The term I've heard, somebody introduced me to this man a while ago. The brother killed me with this, and he said it's a trauma bond. You got a trauma bond because you used to all that drama and that toxicity, and that's supposed to make you go away, but it makes you come back. Because he probably is going to go to her. They do. Just wait till we hear in a matter of weeks or a month or a year from now. Yeah, a wedding picture pop up online of the dude that did this, or she sporting him in jail, or something else is going on. So I say that I don't want to lose sight of losing a great person, Adreian. He was a great community guy. His relationship with Lacey and all those type of things. But I hope we can learn something. You go ask something, Orlando? I'm sorry, did you say something?
Just because you spoke of, me being a coach of girls, I kind of see that all the time. And you really can't jump into it. I find that some of my players are in relationships that are abusive. And it's very clear. And the most that I can do as a coach is kind of really sit them down, give them the speech. Now, when I was a younger coach, that came in age. When I was a younger coach, I'd be looking for the young man.
Writing down on them.
To go how, you leave her alone, whatever. The entire approach that I take is
it was a different era. The likelihood of fisticuffs or gunplay. Now gunplay is on the table for every situation.
Right. I could tell the story a long time ago, not that too long ago, but there was an assistant coach at Martin Luther King who was a former, let me put that on there, was a former police officer that ended up killing a young man outside of King that went to go try to rob two of his players. Mm-hmm. So there is that protection. You feel like you are that father figure for the most part. You're that father away from that father.
Right.
And there is that strong bond, and there isn't anything that you won't do for your players. But in this day and age, with concealed carry, just a concealed carry here in Michigan is enough to that you should pause. But stand your ground in Florida is enough to not only pause, but to stand still.
Well, they think that they got a better chance of getting away with it. This is my guy, James Lewis, J. Lou, my big bro, through A4A, number love for this brother right here. He said, reports said that AP's girlfriend pleaded with the shooter not to pull out his gun. If you knew this dude was trigger happy, why you take AP over there? Come on, exactly. And you thinking you can just verbalize this and whatnot. And J. Lou, I'm glad you brought that up, because the discussion nobody really want to have is, and I'll go ahead and say it, and I know it can go both ways, but I'll go ahead and say it. Some of these women need to check what their expectations are for their man. Because you done brought this man into something. And there's probably a lot of women on here who would think, I got my man, and I'm going to bring my man over to intervene in your business and look at the outcome. And I think the only reason we know about that because AP is a nationally, international basketball player with a Michigan State bond. But this probably happened to brothers all the time, man. We don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Lou, I appreciate you, bro. I do, man. Thanks for chiming in. And the hope is that we can get something improved. Particularly, I want to say thank you from a female's point of view, my mother as well, and everyone who commented on this. So we'll get moving. But before we do, got to shout out my guy Horatio Williams that just posted today about the golf outing coming up on June 21st in Plymouth. I will definitely be out there, and it won't be my first time hitting the link, so I'll make sure I get something going before then. But let's just thank the Horatio Williams Foundation for supporting what's going on here at the SPS Podcast. Shout out to Horatio. Also, want to shout out Gilead Sciences. It's giving us support as well. And one of my favorite places to go in the world, Dick's Sporting Good, man. They get you straight. They'll get you straight. But with that being said, we're going to keep it going as it relates to some other things that are going on. Let me just clear the board for us real quick and get ready for the next one, man. And I hate to say it kind of still deals with the same theme of, people not acting appropriately. And I'll show you that in 1 second. That comes in the form of Chris Paul and what he had to experience, same type of deal. Chris Paul's situation, they on the road in Dallas, and a fan puts his hand on Chris Paul's mama,
On Mother's Day.
On Mother's Day, come on. And Chris Paul like to keep it all together, head of the play. Well, he used to former head of the Players Association, well known, well respected, going to always be an icon in professional sports. And here we got that, proverbial story of the mom going there to comfort her son. So what I heard on the backstory, guys, was that this kid, and I saw the video, I shared it with you guys, reached out, came like the front row seats, reached out to the floor seats to put his hands on Chris Paul's mother. And there was some other interactions too. But come to find out, the guy that we see in the picture, it wasn't him that did it. He invited a stranger.
Random.
My thought is, how I be with that suite life, Orlando. You know how you be in them suites all the time. You got the suites, right? And then you got the seats down low. And what you do, you swap out, or whatever it may be, if that's the case. But yeah, he goes like, I just want to let the guy sit in the seat, and you invite some fool that you don't even know, and they go do one of the most heinous acts we've seen with somebody touching the player. And Chris Paul, like, dog, it is what it is. And I remember when Shaquille and them said they was unfiltered. They said, no, man, he started naming the names of his people. He said, I told him to come to the game. You got my permission to handle that because they nothing but paying bail. Ain't going to be no problem. So, Terry, I'll start with you, man. When you hear about this, Chris Paul, who's always been a class act, man, I mean, you can take President Obama, who always got it together. Somebody mess with his people, you know what I'm saying? You're going to get a different side of him. But what's your take on what's going on? What do you think may be the fallout from something like this going further, too?
No, I was upset. I do think that, security has been amped up recently on court side activities with like fans running out on the court and like different activities like that, man. But I mean, I don't blame Chris Paul. He was upset. I mean, it's different from messing with someone's mom or family member outside the court, but he's in his profession where he's, concentrating on the game and he has to worry about somebody messing around with his family. I think that just shows that, the fan base and sports at the end of the day brings the good and bad out of people. So I think, and I think Anthony's right there. I mean, there's hardly any security out there. We see like even celebrities getting involved with the games. Like DJ Khaled grabbed the basketball and started messing around. Drake is over there tapping Nick Nurse a while ago. So it's just like the security is, and a lot of it is because of their status on the floor. No, you can't really tell them what to do. Don't tell me what to do. I won't come to the game anymore. It's that status with that sitting courtside. And I think, it's very disappointing. It just shows, man, privileged people, feel like they can do whatever they want to do. And it's very disappointing, again, just because a guy like Chris Paul, very well respected, and fans just kind of taking the game way too far. It's never that deep to mess with a family, a man's family, especially in a playoff game. I'm sure they were already intimidated a little bit. People are already talking about you already because they know whose mom you are. But the point of where you start touching and all that stuff, that's way past the line of what's allowed and what should be allowed to happen in a game.
Yeah, Anthony said star players should always have security around them, but I think it's no question. They do have security directly for them. I know several of the security guys and what role they play, but from what we saw in the video footage I shared with you guys, I think there's just the league is expecting people to have a certain level of decorum to where you're not going to reach over and touch somebody or make contact. And to be honest, I don't know how you really can police that. I mean, you can have the ushers right there, like you see at the games or whatever or not, but it was just, I think the expectations on the decorum of the people that are there participating. You know what I'm saying? Orlando, what do you think about the whole incident itself?
It's not surprising, and I'm quite surprised we hadn't had multiple incidents before this. And I'm sure there is. They've probably been squashed before it made it to the news like this one. They have every right to be mad, and I agree with Anthony. The security, they do have the security around them, but the point is they need to hire security that aren't actually senior citizens, because most of these arenas, everybody's about 80 that's working at floor security.
Hey, my man that was at Memphis that hit the court when the old girl tried to get on the court.
He got hurt. Yeah, he was sitting right there.
Right. So I mean, this is an NBA issue. The NBA should really sit down, and I'm sure they will after this incident, and then sort of come up with a plan to secure players' families. Because I'm sure security's focus is the players themselves on that court, not necessarily their families, friends that attend the game. But it's sad, especially we're still in a pandemic. How are you touching people? You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's just a whole nother level of thinking for me, being an older man in the pandemic. Don't touch me. You would figure all of that, sort of thing would have changed. But then on the flip side of it, and I'm pose this question to you, Lindsay. When you do get those floor seats and you do get that sweet life and you get a taste of it, you do feel just a little bit different when you're there.
Oh yeah.
You feel a little, you do feel a little privileged.
Hey, privileged.
But bring me my beer in a quick way.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Do that. I don't touch anybody.
And once you get it, ain't no going back either. You can't go back upstairs and just sit in that. I got Jay Lou says Chris Paul was touching too many people on the court, which is why he was over there to see it. Yeah, you're right. He had a bad game that night all the way around. Kim Lod, hey Kim, that's a family friend, dear friend from years ago. So they should have a section for family. And to that degree, I think even still is just like the nature, unless you do like the European leagues where they put like that plastic covering over the players, or that section, because they be throwing pennies and batteries at them. It's gonna be hard, man. So what did you say? Spend thousands on the floor seat, don't give you the right to act a mess. And Anthony, you hit it. I think you hit it though. The privilege that comes with being down there in Orlando. Now we kind of just talked about it indirectly. Like you down there, you feeling all kind of way. Luckily the kid wasn't drinking. Ain't no telling what he would have did. We got Roderick, Mr. Wilson in the building. He said there was multiple incidents in Minnesota where people were going on the floor and people protested on it. Yeah, man. It's like, the league has created something that they want to make it accessible, but they also want to manage. But I think what's probably going to happen, man, they're going to start. But think about it. If I plant somebody in there, another security person, that may be a minimum cost, but is that going to take away from the fan experience or whatever it may be? But what can you do?
They're going to have to readjust, because the way the whole thing is set up now, they're putting those seats right behind them because they're getting top dollar for them. They're going to have to lose a little bit of that money and put a cushion between that floor and fans.
Yeah, something's going to have to happen. There's going to have to be enough that if you cross this line and do it, so be it. We're going to keep it going. We got another topic that's going. I want to shout out to Mike Brown. Hey, man, members have his privileges, and say what you want to say. It may not be the most sought-after job, but it's a better NBA job than the one I got. Mike Brown has taken over the Sacramento Kings job. He don't got to go far from San Francisco to Sacramento to be right down there. Good luck to him and what's going on. Happy to see a brother get a job. Mike Brown has coached Cleveland. He's coached the Lakers. He's coached, obviously, matter of fact, he was the only person to have 2 NBA jobs in one day, because he took on the role when Steve was out, and he had the Sacramento Kings job. So I guess my question is, and I'll start with you, Orlando. I'll switch it up a little bit. What does it say about someone like Mike Brown that in this NBA that has had scrutiny over the past few years about hiring black coaches, that he can always, almost like the new age Alvin Gentry, he can always – I almost forgot Mike Brown was still in the league, coach. You know what I'm saying? But he popped up with it. Yeah. What does it say about him that he can continue to get these type of opportunities going forward?
I think he and not taking anything away from Brown. I think he's a solid coach, and I think he'll do well. But for me, it's once you get to become a member of that country club, they just sort of recycle.
There you go.
The same guys over and over and over again.
And he got the credentials. He didn't want. He won a chip.
Right. Yes. He has some credentials, and it's good to see. It's good to see a brother getting another opportunity. But he's a member of that club. You know, no matter how far you fall from grace, no matter how far that you're sitting on the end of that bench, as long as you're a member of that club, you're going to have a better opportunity than anybody up and coming.
And help my memory, was there a coach in between him and Luke Walton, or when did Luke get let go? Did he just get let go? Was there somebody in between? No, Alvin Gentry took on the role, right? Luke Walton was out. Then Alvin Gentry came in, if I believe correctly, and they went from there. That just show you how Sacramento ball, and we can't even give you the whole coach rundown. But I say that to say, you see how they went from Luke, who was like, Luke had all that funny business going on. You know, he had, they go say it was his record, but, he had a sexual assault issue that was kind of hovering for a little while too. And now they find guys that they ain't had no issues with, that they safe with, whatnot. But I wish Mike Brown the best. I guess for you, Terry, shout out to Latasha Prince. She said good for Mike. She helps us get the word out there and whatnot. Terry, I guess my question to you is, what's the expectation for Mike Brown being a championship coach over at Sacramento, or is there any expectations at all?
Yeah, well, I think it's just I think it's more of a stability pick. I mean, his overall head coaching career is about a 61% win percentage. I mean, he's won Coach of the Year before. He's a defensive-minded coach, which I did a lot of reading about it, and he's a guy that's kind of putting together those defensive schemes with the Warriors right now. I had no idea it was him, but he's kind of the mastermind of putting those defensive schemes and zone looks and all those different kind of different matchups that they have for the Warriors. And so, I mean, he's a guy who I think he's definitely there to kind of season guys. Great players coach. He's coached a lot of Hall of Famers or soon to be Hall of Famers.
He's coached a lot of Hall of Famers, dude. He coached LeBron, Kobe, Steph,
Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson.
That's right.
So, I mean, he's just a guy that is well respected. And I'm really interested to see what he does with the Sacramento team because statistically that has not been a good defensive team. Their bottom half.
Hey, you hear how nicely Terry said they trash? You hear that? He said
pretty much. So, Terry, a quick question to you. So do you think he's there maybe for a 3-4 year run just to stabilize the franchise and then to move on?
I think so from ownership. But I think so too is that they ownership has to understand they're going to have to buy in to that process too. And I would say Mike Brown's looking to stay there. I think Mike's like, look, I feel like we have a good chance. I mean, they have De'Aaron Fox. They traded for Sabonis. And they had a couple younger pieces around them. Not really nuns to really cheer about. But I think Sabonis and Fox, I think, are some really cool pieces that they can put stuff around them. But it's really interesting to see what they do defensively again because, they're a bottom tier defensive team. So it's cool to see a guy who, his teams have never finished outside the top 15 in defensive rating. His team's only finished twice outside the top 15 in defensive rating. So
stat.
It'd be really cool to see what he can do with De'Aaron Fox, who's a great two-way guy. Sabonis is one where I'm like, I don't know how that will work because Sabonis is definitely more offensive-centered. Yeah. Defensively, he struggles a little bit. So I think it's one of those things where they're giving a guy who has a ton of, prestige, a guy who's been around the game for a minute, and just looking for someone to kind of – because Sacramento's a team where they can go really uphill really fast, and then, once things, hit the fan – they can go really down and lose like 7 games in a row and really not be able to put together any good stretches.
Yeah. Shout out to Moni Williams. She said Mike Brown's a good to great coach. I think when he coached the Lakers, Kobe and him clashed and he was gone quick. Yeah, that's one of those situations. Now he's at a point, I remember the story. I forget the name. One of the referees that actually was an NBA prospect, and he came in during the 90 class with Gary Payton and all those guys, whatnot. But here's the thing. what happened is this referee would say when he was reffing against Jordan, Gary, and all those guys, his contemporaries, they would challenge him a lot. So here's the thing. Now that Mike is kind of one of the senior guys in the league, and the stories he can tell about Kobe, Kevin Durant, and all that, but all these young guys coming in, they can't really challenge that, to Moni's point. I said that's something to keep in mind. So we want to wish him the best, man. We'll keep out. Now, here's a question, and we may revisit this in a couple of years when the SPS Edge Show is either doing a show on the jet or on the yacht. How much time is he going to be that coach, win or lose? How many years is he going to be in that role?
I say about maybe 3 to 4 years. I think
3
to 4 years for a solid evaluation. Because
I'll say this just to be devil's advocate. I say 2 to 3 because you know how they be. How they be on that type of tip. You know what I'm saying? So we'll see. With that being said, I want to move on to the next topic revolving the Joker. But before that, I do want to recognize Hoops Hype's comment and RIP Bob Lanier. He says he's assuming Orlando probably old enough to have seen him play or know of his impact. And no shade with the age thing. I appreciate Hoops Hype saying Orlando ain't no shade.
I know it's no shame. And I am old enough and have gone. I remember my grandfather taking me to Olympia back in the day.
Oh, Olympia Stadium. My mom will chime in on that.
Yeah, back in the day. And Bob Lanier was a force of nature. I read, you know how to, when you're really young, I'm old now, but there's very few thoughts that really kind of stick out when you were young. One thing that really sticks out in my mind, I remember Bob Lanier, and I can't remember the center's name. He's a player from Cleveland. I remember him getting into a fight and him beating him into the stands, into like the third or fourth row.
Wow.
And in the stands. I mean, he was just phenomenal. And I went back.
They get suspended either.
I remember. Hold on, I'm going to take it real back. I remember Converse shoes. I think it was a size 21 or 22 shoe he had. They'd have a model of his shoe in the Sibley shoe stores here in the city.
Well, hey, you still going back? You said Sibley.
Oh, I'm going back. Yeah, I am.
You said Sibley's. Oh man, that's back to school right there, baby. Yeah. Shout out to my mama for always being there to get me some shoes from Sibley's. Thank you, mama.
Oh yeah, that's just a phenomenal player and just a true representative of the NBA and the Detroit Pistons.
Yeah, Lou says Bob Lanier used to get his haircut on West 7 Mile. Lanier put time in the hood. Yeah, I would imagine so. Those guys coming like that, and it's sad. The only reason we didn't have anything up for him because by the time we went to press, that news had just came out. What your mother say? Biggest shoe I ever saw.
That's the one. When you go to they used to sit it up front.
Yeah, I remember that. Was that the one in Northland? Was it ever in Northland?
Yeah, they had a model of his shoe.
I remember that. They kind of built that around the whole piece. Then they had the store in Fairlane too. I know we might be going over your head talking like these Detroit landmarks with Sibley's shoes though. Oh man, made me feel good. Yeah, man, we want to say rest in peace to him, man. It happens, but that's a sad thing. We're gonna keep moving off the big shoes to the Joker with the back-to-back.
I've lost him, Terry. So hopefully he'll be back on.
Yeah, he was pulling up the picture.
I think he got excited about the Sibley shoes and hit the button. So, Terry, I'm going to pick it up. Here he is. He's back.
I made it back. Yeah, as soon as I went out,
excited.
I knew. Y'all was ready though. I figured. What I was going to talk about with what's going on with the Joker in the back-to-back piece. What do we got right here? Deal with it is what they're saying. What's going on. I want to go to one of our comments in 1 second as well. Going to who said it? Give me 1 second. I'm going to pull up the comment by I just saw one of our faithful followers made a comment in regard. I just want to make sure I got it there for you. I may be missing it. Okay, here we go. It was Dion Hoos page. And Dion Hoos page said, I wonder why Cats have a problem with Joker winning MVP. And when I put that out there, Dion, I said that to say, I feel a little certain way about the Joker, but guess what, man? I want to tell you about the numbers. The numbers not lying as I pull our crew back up. The numbers don't lie. with the voting. Let me show you what the voting says, guys. Bear with me as I remove his comment so you can see that. And this was what the voting was. Jokic 65, Joel Embiid 26. Other receiving first place votes. Giannis had 9.
No.
So MVP voting results, but I want to go to a comment that Joker made. No, excuse me, that Embiid made. Embiid said this. This is what we can, and this is kind of at the crux of what Dion is talking about. Obviously, congrats to Nikola. He deserved it. I think that's worth saying. He did say he deserved it. That's him saying. He said, I guess every year it's all about whatever you guys decide, whatever fits the narrative. So that's what we're really talking about right now. It's like, yeah, you deserved it. And I understand what MVP is. But, at this point, Joel is moving further along in the playoffs, and to his credit, Joker had his best season. I think he averaged about 26.7 points. His career, that's a big season for him going forward. But I don't know, man. It's like when you heard the MVP vote, Terry, when you heard that, what was your initial thought when you heard that Joker got it for back-to-back seasons?
I wasn't surprised because they said it was a regular season award every time. Like that's the first reason, because last year it was a similar scenario where his team nor did he show up for the playoffs, just like this year. I mean, sure, he had his moments where he was great, but I would argue that's not the MVP that we saw in the regular season. And so I think, when Draymond had his press conference where, he kind of mentioned that, hey, some players just are great in the regular season, but as we see around the league, they don't show up. And so in the playoffs, so I'm not surprised because it is a regular season award. I'm a little disappointed because the MVP criteria changes every year depending on who the candidates are. And I'm not a fan of that. I'd rather them just say the best player in the league, because valuable is such a subjective term. Because you can say, oh, well, LeBron's valuable. Without him playing this season, the Lakers suck. Or without Curry, it's just like different conversations come up, and it's always different for every team. I feel like Embiid was the most valuable player on his team. One, because we saw the series change whenever he came back. So now it's actually competitive again. We saw him even before they got James Harden. The 76ers were still a great team. Even though they traded their whole depth away, they were still a good team with Embiid. So I feel like he was the MVP this year. And I also think so, too, that, man, the NBA is really making a global push, a big global marketing push by having Luka be the guy, having Luka do so well. Granted, these guys are all balling. But the thing is that I feel like they're getting a lot more push for pub because they realize how many more international players are coming, how many more international players are coming. And I wouldn't be surprised, man, in the near future, we don't have an NBA game in London or in these different European places because it is growing so much that I can't imagine that that's not on their dream board of what's going to happen within the next year. So I'm not disappointed. I'm disappointed because the voting was so far and there was such a big margin of victory. But again, I'm not surprised because it is a regular season award, and Jokic being an MVP last year, being an MVP, caliber player, winning back to back, it's not surprising because he had a better season this year than he did last year in the regular season. So it's just one of those things where you just got to live with it, but it makes you really think what needs to happen with that MVP award.
Yeah, shout out to James Lewis again, saying good point about the NBA global market. I'm sure they're going to be consulting with the NFL on how they do their, London game and those type of things. And I do think there were some international games, but to Terry's point, or Orlando, maybe just as we need to talk about how they need to make the changes after the season, maybe what really gets people and is that it's a regular season award, but you end up announcing it, someone in the playoffs. But why not just have a regular, extend to the end of the playoffs, and you can still have a Finals MVP. But I just think what happens is, instead of ending at the regular season, let it end at the end of the season. And you can have both a Finals MVP and a regular season MVP. I don't know if that butts up too much because, to your point about changing the narrative, I agree with that. It's like it's really a weird thing because you can say, okay, focus on the regular season. But you're right. It do seem like the criteria changed. And these writers, these voters, I think to your point, you said it right about that global market. That's a good look all the way around. But then you can claim this guy's an MVP. He already went fishing.
Right.
You know what I'm
He's
saying?
bounced
You should think that the
2 years in a
MVP
row.
is still going to be out there. I know I jumped in. What do you think?
No, I think the issue, you want to tear down the process and rebuild it, but no matter what you do, you're going to run into those issues. I mean, I've read some material where, there's a lot of calls for players to vote for it, but then
they have a separate voting that they do. There's a separate by the Players Tribune, and it's always totally different from whoever ends up getting it.
Right, but I mean, for me, I think that would be more of a valid look. But I mean, for me, but they did, like some of the players for the All-Star ballot, they kind of did it, and they were voting for people that literally, and I wish I'd have kept that article up. They were voting for people that solid players, but not marquee players, because they're looking at the game differently from what we're looking at.
And then they got their own political allegiances too, with what's going on, you know, and everything. Well, we gonna keep an eye on that.
Yeah, but Terry was absolutely right. I mean, you look at that global market and that global view, and that they, I hate to say it, but on occasion I will scream that the NBA resembles the WWE or WWF, whatever it is at times. Whatever fits the narrative. I mean, it does. What makes for that good story at that point in time? They hit that mark every once in a while.
Well, the NBA is a business. It is about entertainment and it's about marketing and growth, and that does say a lot when he does that. But I know going forward, it will help a lot more if this guy is able to have more success and get more people to tune in. I'd be curious to know what the championship, the playoff ratings are going to be with LeBron not being in there. We're going to stay with that going forward. Before I go to the NBA player, I want to acknowledge Ballers Page comments. And fellas, y'all got to keep the WNBA somewhat in your weekly talks with it starting back. I know Terry is a WNBA expert. Let me tell you something.
I've been watching. Yeah.
Yesterday, I cringed because I realized that we did not have a piece either for the WNBA, but I do want to say to our credit, we've been rolling, making sure there's been some form of acknowledgement on every show, whether it's the college players or whatever it may be, referring to women playing. But I totally agree, Ballers Page, and we will keep and have the WNBA segment be a part of. Like I said, after I released this, I realized I kind of cringed because I didn't do anything. But we have been making a conscious effort week after week, if you go back and see our shows, to make sure that we have the appropriate acknowledgement for our women in sports. But we will definitely keep the WNBA piece going on. And we do have an expert with that, he's both the college savant and the WNBA expert. But I want to make sure I acknowledge that Ballers Page. Go ahead, please.
Real quick, while we're on the WNBA topic, because it reminds me of a post that I saw a little bit earlier this week. And I don't know how many of the people out in the audience that, have reached out and bought that NBA pass, league pass. But I saw that the WNBA pass is $25.
Wow.
Compared to what? The league pass is what?
I think the league pass is probably about $2 something.
See, that's significant.
It's crazy.
So I think, as my commitment, Ballers Page, when I'm done with this broadcast, I'm paying that $25. Getting that league pass.
There we go.
I'm not gonna try to miss it.
I think it's right there on the app.
Yep. So Ballers Page, Orlando's gonna be our digital correspondent when it comes to WNBA, and Ballers Page, hold us to that we stay on top of that. We appreciate that. I want to jump to Boo real quick. She asked a question about the Steve Smith interview. Yeah, how was the interview with Steve Smith? Did y'all have any connection? He just said you can interview. I've been knowing Steve for years. Steve and I have developed a relationship over the years, and shout out to my guy Vernon Richard over at Juice Nation. They are fam. So it was a combination of both. I had to go up and say, Steve, can you do this? He's like, yeah, we good. But been knowing Steve for years. He's a good guy. Orlando, you know him being from the city and the respect he has in the city. And Terry, as a Michigan State guy, but it was a great sit down with him. And in many cases, what I like to tell people, even with the Jim Harbaugh interview, a lot of my interviews, the content comes from the conversation we had prior to. So Steve and I had chopped it up prior to. So yeah, I'm happy to say I've been knowing Steve for years, and it's always been great times, and even more so than just the interview. Last thing I'll say is the last time I was with him, I won't say during Michigan State homecoming, I had some of my young guys, some of my young ballers, Tristan Nichols, who went on and won the state championship at De La Salle, some other guys as well. They were shout out to what's the nephew name? I'm drawing a blank. But all my guys that I came up, they wanted to see him, and Steve spent some time talking to them, giving them some insight. Jay Lou says, Lindsay's hard to do your show lady without including Doughboy. I know Doughboy is all over the place. Y'all Doughboys, I know that was your guy. Steve over there. Hey, shout out to the Doughboy. I got number love for you and the rest of the Doughboys. He said, hey, East 7 Mile, Ryan, stand up. Doughboys doing it. Yeah. But I appreciate that. So let's do this. We're going to talk some NBA playoffs. We got a number of comments up there. So guys, forgive me. I want to go back and make sure. Let me start with Dion's Hoops page. Perfect. Right on time. Dion said, what's y'all thoughts on GD Buzz letting Phil Jackson help with the Lakers coaching search? And do y'all hear a story that Phil Jackson wanted the Lakers to trade LeBron and James Harden? I think that's cap. That LeBron trade LeBron and build around Westbrook. I believe that was put out there. And it wasn't Bleacher Report. It was like some logo that looked like Bleacher Report. I think that was simply because that's asinine. I mean, come on, man. What you think? And I think Jeannie had to do something, and it may have a lot to do with that the NBA Showtime pieces on HBO. She kind of had to reclaim her brand and say, "Hey, I'm in control here and what's going on." But what do you guys think about Jeannie and then Phil being involved? And I mean, they have their personal relationship, and why not? It wouldn't be bright not to call on someone who's brought you several championships. And what I hear also that she supposes is bringing Magic Johnson back in the fold. What do you think about that, Terry?
Yeah, I mean, she's doing what most owners should be doing. I mean, getting involved with their team. I mean, to an extent. I mean, she is a part of the hiring process. So why not get experts or those who have been in the game and know what it takes to win? In your circle, trying to find a new coach. I mean, I've seen they mentioned a couple Bucks assistants, so they're looking at guys who have been in championship games, who have rings, and so I think they're being really selective. And I just don't buy into the whole trade LeBron thing. I never will rule out that possibility, but I just think that
if you trade LeBron, you might well go get Mike Brown and coach Sacramento Kings. What it will be?
It's one of those things where it's like to build around Westbrook. I mean, there's nothing in that. There's no value in that. I just think that fans aren't going to want that. I mean, you have to think business too. No one is going to want to do like the whole Westbrook thing. So it's just one of my things where it's like you trade a guy like LeBron, right? Sure, you get some value with that, but to say something that ignorant to say I want to build around Westbrook. It's impossible. Like there's no benefit in that, no winning benefit and no business profit in that. So I just don't see it.
What do you think about that, Orlando?
I think Jeannie is doing the right thing. You put your feelers out there. You hear from everybody. I mean, not only from Phil, but from Joe Blow that sits in the 100th row up in the ceiling. You put it out there. Put it out there, and all these stories that are coming out. The way that media plays things right now, I want to say 60% of those things that kind of get shot out there, it's pretty much just to see what the fan reaction is. And that gives you a sort of a feel on which way I should go, because you were absolutely right, Terry. It is a business. It's a business. She's been in this business long enough. We stumble every once in a while, but I trust that the Lakers franchise will move on and do a good job in moving on and taking that next step. But yeah, LeBron leaving, maybe I'm gonna put a percentage on it, Terry. Maybe a 15% chance of that happen.
Ooh, I can see that.
Ooh, 15%. I was.
And somebody may come and just offer the world. One of those offers you can't refuse. Yeah.
I think the other part is LeBron want to leave. Let me jump on Baller's page real quick. He said, what's Grand Ledge Lance's on Al Horford been drinking? He jumping and playing like he's 25 again. Well, I want to shout out my guy Daryl Buchanan. You know Daryl Buchanan, Orlando, just recently retired or just left the coaching position over at Southfield A&T. He made a good point. He said that Giannis, that whole stare down, come from Giannis not having that cultural connection to say you don't stare cats down on the court because that's gonna bring you in. All that what he did, And then, shout out to Al's sister saying, oh, I know that look. He pissed, you know what I'm saying? But it took that to kind of shake it. Like, oh, my man. Because, Al Horford's comment to Baller's Page point was, what made you do it? He said he was doing too much. They said he was doing a little bit too much. So that was kind of like breaking the rules and whatnot. But that inspired him and got him going. Al was balling out so hard. But, man, unfortunately for Boston last night, Marcus Smart, I want to see what them Boston fans really like. Are they go dog Marcus Smart? After the last, you can't blame a series or a game on a player. But man, Marcus Smart had 2 bad plays last night down the stretch. And as a matter of fact, I should say, Drew Holiday owned him down the stretch. Man, those last couple of plays, with all that. So we go see. I want to make sure I'm catching all the playoff talk. Shout out to Who's Ball the Scoop. He said this might be a myth, but someone believe this, some believe and some don't. Y'all believe in any way NBA games are fixed or the NBA informs the ref to help teams out. I watched the Warriors-Memphis game last night, and you couldn't tell me the Warriors threw that game. Draymond Green was throwing the ball to you, and it was crazy. They looked like they didn't try. I know some days teams want it more than others, but the games look suspect to me. So let me say this about that. I would say, to answer your question, I think there's no way we can say the games aren't fixed. We know about the whole – what was my man who was the coach that came out, the referee rather, that was I forget his name, drawing a blank. I know we need to see a 30-30 for that. But I will say up 3-1, that was the game for the Warriors to fall back on. Now a lot of people say, man, you're supposed to just end it, but they just didn't have that motivation, whatever, what else, and you saw the outcome. Kim said, what happened last night with the Warriors last night? Well, a la Steph Curry, they were like, whoop that trick, what's that happened to Memphis?
Got too high.
Yeah. But let's go back to the I said it a little earlier in the broadcast in my WWF reference. I don't think per se that it's fixed, but I think it gets shoved in certain directions when it needs to be.
Yeah, I think so. I think so too. Like the Warriors, the Warriors have been known to blow some series clinching games just because they just have those games where they just don't come out fully motivated. Like they have that, they know, and even when they were with Kevin Durant, the Warriors just have that gear where they can like put it in drive 40 miles an hour in a high speed race and kind of just be okay, and then be like, all right, well, I'm about to put the nitro in. I know it's over. So then they just had that championship gear. I think too, it's not more so the Warriors. I think it's the Grizzlies. I think we need to be talking about more so that the Grizzlies are playing their butts off with their best player out. I think this Grizzlies team has a really good chance of being a team that is very competitive for the finals every single year because this team is bigger than Ja. They have Jaren Jackson Jr., Tyus Jones stepped up last night. I like Brandon Clark and what he brings into the game. But even our guy, Tillman, Tillman's balling. We just, Desmond Bane is one of my favorite shooters, a guy that's a 3-and-D kind of player turning into that. So they're bigger than John Morant. John Morant's their guy. He's their chief. But, man, the Grizzlies are saying, we're no pushover. You guys are going to have to play your best ball in order to really get us off the court. So I think it's not more so the Warriors. I think it's the Grizzlies.
But, Terry, to what you're saying, I get it, and they're making a statement, and it's on the big stage that they're making a statement. My question is, where's the next game?
Oh yeah, it's what is it, Chase now? I'm used to saying Oracle, but it's in Chase.
Okay, what do you stand to make for just one more game?
That's true. That's true. But I feel like too, the Grizzlies knew, man, we can't let this series end at home. We rather it end in Chase. Or rather, in the Bay Area, I think it's that pride.
Yeah, thing. I'm not putting in that effort.
Yeah,
because I want to. You know what I'm saying? My fans deserve something.
Yeah,
and I'm gonna give it to them.
Yeah.
Plus my owner's gonna get a nice little payday, and I may get a bonus at the end of that.
It just was not a priority. And Tim Donaghy is a referee, the disgraced referee that was involved in gambling. And to answer Hoopballer's point from earlier, it's just like, yeah, man, anything humans involved in, they can get over on. It can happen that way. Also, he says, do y'all agree that Giannis is currently the best player in the world? It is not really close other than Durant. It took me a while to get on Giannis' bandwagon. as the best, but he is. Yeah, man. I mean, dog, who competing with that dude? That man can go. Like, to be honest, there are no Giannis stoppers out here. You can argue there's some people who can slow LeBron down or whatever it may be, or by committee. There are no Giannis stoppers. He goes bring Ron Artest back, and he goes from coast to coast. And he can do whatever. And I have not seen anybody put themselves up, because the last, you know what people fearful of? Somebody who can dunk instantly. I know LeBron can dunk with some room to run, and he coming downhill. But see, the people don't want to get hit on by Giannis, and he didn't open his game up with the mid range even more, and the 3-pointer too. I mean, what do you think? You think Giannis is the best player in the world right now, Terry?
Oh, for sure. I think he is. I think it's a little closer than what we think, but I think if I had to give it to somebody, it's definitely Giannis, just because, you know, the guy is just unstoppable. The way he draws fouls and gets your defender that you choose and you get in the game in foul trouble, he makes you change your game plan really quick. And he's somebody, to me, that it annoys me so much because he's so unstoppable that he's selling himself short most possessions shooting 3-pointers. I think Stan Van Gundy talked about it on when he was reporting, a sideline reporter, a sideline commentator. He was talking about, why does Giannis choose to shoot threes instead of going into the paint and putting pressure on the defense? So, like, that's where, like, Giannis, the only way you beat Giannis if Giannis beats himself, if Giannis settles for less. And so it's one of those things where I have them in the finals again, because I just think Giannis is learning not to beat himself as much as he used to in the past, because he knows bro can go to the rim anytime he wants to. There's no one stopping him. You're either going to foul him, which a lot of teams are strategizing to make him shoot free throws, or he's just going to go to the rim and get a nice dunk.
Yeah. Going back, James Lewis said, "Series of rap fellas, Draymond himself was enjoying it." They were enjoying that. Yeah, I think the thing, you know, what Van Gundy got to realize. Shout out to Stan Van Gundy. He invited me to Pistons practice a few times. I'll never forget that. Dude, it's stamina. Giannis ain't trying to do it. You know how I go as a baller. You ain't trying to go to the rack every time because you be wore out. That's why you take those threes and whatnot. But you got to work on that. I think we're good with playoff basketball at this point. We'll make a point to bring the WNBA back in. Let's take a quick moment to, again, recognize our great sponsor. Shout out to my guy H, Horatio Williams and the Horatio Williams Foundation, getting it in. I got the golf outing coming up. We'll be talking more about that. Gilead Science as well, and Dick's Sporting Good. Now, as we get ready to wrap up, one topic I want to talk about that we want to be consistent with, man, we want to do an NIL update. I think it's about to happen, man. Excuse me, you know what? I want to talk about your boy Brady. Brady still getting the bag, guys. I mean, come on now, this is crazy. Talk about what'd you say? I see it on your face.
Man, I had my mic off. Ooh, my goodness.
Dog, talk about how they love this man. Dog, they talking about a deal for this guy where he's gonna get. Let me get this right. Tom Brady deal with Fox. Sorry for that. Pay him $20 million to $25 million per year. This will make him the highest paid NFL TV analyst, prior to surpassing both Troy Aikman and Tony Romo. And hold on,
ain't been on TV yet.
$333 million playing in the league, and $375 million playing for Fox. And guess what? He ain't never. What you say, Terry? He ain't never.
He didn't even talk yet. We haven't even heard if he has good. We haven't even heard if he has good insight on the game yet. Sure, he's a player, but like commentating is a whole different monster. We haven't even heard him say a word yet on behalf of Fox.
And to be honest, man, I don't. You know, I've grown to like Tom Brady the more he's become under scrutiny. I just become to like him because when I start paying more attention to him in his interviews, now he doesn't say anything he didn't think about. I just like maybe that one piece where it was him and who was our boy from Michigan when they had to sit down that time. I think they had a 30 for 30 recently. They were talking about the tuck rule, the tuck play when they were sitting down in the script. Anyway, it was him and Woodson. Him and Woodson were sitting at the Towns Mansion in Miami. Anyway, and
real quick,
yeah, please.
I just want to answer.
It's
Terry.
7:00.
Terry, I'm gonna give you that answer that you're asking for. That most of the fine heads at Fox News and sports, that the whole organization, what they're saying, and it's one very simple answer to your question, but it's Tom Brady.
Yeah,
that's all. That's all it needs to be. He is, and I hate to say this, the great white hope. He is.
There you go. There you go. Can't go wrong. What did my mom say? What he gonna say? Anything you want. That's the GOAT. And then also too, and Terry, here's the thing. You make a good point about his ability, but what they tying into when they did their projections, they saying, dude, the people we go get tuning in, the sponsors we go get, no matter if he horrible, it's gonna pay. We probably they might make they might make $1 billion off the deal. So to pay him, 30%, you know what I'm saying? Like that's how they doing the math, and then they projecting it out that way. And someone made a good point. I was watching Keyshawn, Jay, Will, and Max, and they said, look, if he mess around and go to the Super Bowl again, it's on Fox. Turn around and retire, come back and start working for Fox. Fox can lock the game up. So believe me, this is all about projections, but it also tells you how much money is out there that they could forecast out $375 million for 10 years, $25 million a year. I mean, you think about it. We're going to pay somebody $25 million a year who's standing to make us $100 million a year. That's a no-brainer. You know,
Lindsay, quick question, because I did a lot of reading on it, and I've read some articles that sort of lean to the fact that bringing him in for that number helps them legitimize them keeping contracts. What do you feel about that? They feel if they have him on the hook, that helps them negotiate that and keep that.
I totally agree. That's a great insight because it's really even not about Tom. Tom is being used in this case. You're right. They don't know what his ability will be. But for them to go to their other sponsors, like you say, who may be thinking about jumping ship, and we got Tom Brady. And what comes around that? I remember when I was lobbying for Walmart, and this is not about Walmart, but I was in Ohio was one of my states. So part of my job, I was able to go to some Cleveland games. I went to Cleveland. I remember seeing LeBron. That's when I met Shaq. You know, I hugged Shaq. My head came to his stomach, for real. You know what I'm saying? But I'll never forget. They were talking about, you know, the whole LeBron effect. And I think this is probably the same with the Tom effect. That they did the city chamber of commerce did some research because what happened is for everybody to go party, you know, remember Trappers Alley, Orlando and Detroit.
Absolutely.
It was Trappers Alley type thing in Cleveland, Terry, where everybody be partying before the game, hanging out at the restaurants, everything has happened. Then it's like a stroke of a certain time, everybody started heading on over to the arena. And they did a study. The Chamber of Commerce, they said that LeBron playing in Cleveland, they talked about the millions of dollars he brought to everything. It's the same concept. Tom Brady being affiliated with Fox for 10 years is going to allow them to do all that. Because think about it. That's going to be Tom Brady's platform now. Every time Tom launches something, every time he do, it's going to all go through Fox. I think it's a clever idea considering what you got to pay and what you may get back. And Terry, you make a good point. I think that him talking is the least concern.
Yeah, that's true. That's
true.
The
least concern for them. And it's not all about having the best. Then think about it. If now, am I right? Tony Romo and Aikman are on Fox, right? They got everybody. Yeah, they got it sold up. You know,
I was gonna say the way Charles Barkley has been on TNT for so long. I mean, it's got to be some kind of benefit to bring a personality to TV, but it really doesn't.
That's the whole thing where they're trying to bring Draymond because Charles said he's about to be done.
Yeah,
because I think the NFL really tested that water, and they've already kind of tested it with Romo.
Yeah, Romo's been doing a really good job.
He's one of a kind, though, and I think the letdown is going to be in Tom Brady. Though Romo may not play like Tom probably ain't going to commentate like Romo. You know what I'm saying?
But don't you think he brings, no matter how off-putting it may be or how strange it may be, he really is going to give a very unique, like Romo does, a very football perspective. You know, we may not understand it, but we'll learn to understand it.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Clarify, Aikman is on ESPN now, Monday Night Football. Yeah, so they've kind of
get that. Yep, them and Joe. I think Joe Buck moved there with them.
Yep, that's right. Yep. I want to do a quick NIL update, man, because we said at the outset of this we're going to always stay on top of this. Now they're talking about NCAA getting involved with NIL. Now I knew it was coming. We talked about this at the outset. They said they talk about everything. They're talking about putting some restrictions out there. You're hearing this talk, so I just put that out there to you guys. That here it is. They're realizing how clever everybody has become. Orlando brought it to our attention last week about the Miami player that was pretty much holding everybody hostage and said, hey, if I don't get my 300 racks or get as much, it's going to be a problem. So my concern is what was once supposed to be considered a wide open market, a free market for these players, is now the NCAA is figuring out a way that they go get in here and do something. So for whatever it's worth, I want to put that out here. This is the first shot across the bow that the NCAA is trying to put some restrictions on NIL, and I think it's gonna jam the whole game up. You know, what do you think about that, Terry?
Yeah, I mean, I saw something about now the NCAA is trying to restrict boosters from recruiting, and boosters, the only way they have a part in recruiting is money. So I think that's their way of controlling that. So it'd be interesting to see what other restrictions they put, and see how, because whenever you in place rules, it just creates more loopholes. So
Yeah,
it's gonna be interesting to see what schools do in these new titles we keep hearing. Oh, director of recruiting, this guy who has so much. So it's gonna be interesting to see what kind of job titles we're gonna see after these rules keep coming out. We may have like 3 different directors of recruiting at these schools.
Yeah. Orlando knows about this from his political days. They changed the laws in Washington, D.C. when you would go to these big 10-seat table dinners, right? So they changed the laws and said, no, you can no longer invite your congressperson to one of these big sit-down dinners with all this great food at a table with 10 people. You know how they changed the law? So instead now they have a high top with cocktail plates. And you pile the shrimp and everything on top of it. So instead of you having a big sit-down dinner, which would have been a violation of the law, you have to stand at a cocktail table and have smaller plates. So to Terry's point, no, y'all, you can't keep up with this.
That's right, Lindsay. They're just to give you that example, and I'm not going to throw the coach out there, but being at a big tournament, I had big name players down at AAU. Hey, he can't go buy the guy. He wanted to buy the guys something from the concession.
Yeah,
he can't do it. I'm a 16-year-old kid. Hey, come here. Gives me a couple $100. Go buy everybody on your father's team something. No violation by giving me the money. So
and then it wasn't no question where it came from, where the love came from.
No.
And I think here's the thing, man. You can't outsmart a hungry man. And what I mean by that is the NCAA can sit back and be like, okay, this is what we're gonna do. But if somebody hungry, literally hungry, you're not gonna be able to outthink them because you sit in your ivory tower being reactionary, and all they gonna do is say, okay, we know how they go come. This is what we gonna do, and you gonna be several steps behind. It remind me of the Dukes of Hazzard when Roscoe Pico train was always trying to chase them guys and couldn't catch up with them, or Keystone Cops. So what pisses me off is that they claim this free market opportunity, but here they come again, putting their tentacles in, trying to put the pushback on something. So we're gonna see what happens. Go ahead, Orlando.
Lindsay, I think that to that point, the NCAA is they're late to the party. I think the conferences have really gotten together, kind of bounced it against the wall, and then each individual conference it's gonna end up being rules by conference.
I can see that coming.
They're gonna beat the NCAA out by laying down rules. So Atlantic 10, whatever, they're gonna lay down the rules way before they try to lay something out across the country. So they're gonna beat them to it, because I've heard rumors of Big Ten, about $50,000 a player across the board. That's it, and they're gonna limit it. I've heard those rumors. Yeah, so you're gonna get that.
I don't doubt that, and that's gonna make the. But then, what's the difference between that giving an unfair advantage to a big conference over a HBC or a smaller conference, whatever, or not?
But that still gives that. I mean, for me, it gives me a great deal of interest how your smaller conferences deal with things like that. But they'll find a way.
And unless you just, unless you Elon Musk and you went to a small 18 school,
right?
You love your school. That's gonna be it. Well, we're gonna keep an eye on that. We're gonna be on duty when it comes down to keeping these NIL updates. So with the last subject we have, this has been overdue for a while. We got Terry McCord Jr. is going to give us some NFL updates, particularly if there's any draft recap you can do, because we've had so much going on in between. But Terry, you want to just give us a state of affairs with the NFL as you see it?
Yeah, well, I mean, so we're seeing a lot of course, I'm just stating the obvious, a lot of Georgia defenders drafted, which is more than expected. But I mean, a guy that we're seeing like Nakobe Dean, who's had some health issues, got drafted. Probably one of the best defenders on that Georgia team, getting drafted in the 3rd round to the Eagles. The Eagles have Jordan Davis, they have Nakobe Dean, so they're collecting different players that built up their defense. But to me, the story of this is the Lions, and it may be crazy, but I have dedicated this time to give the Lions some hope and to really give them some props for their draft. And I think it all goes to Brad Holmes. I mean, that brother is in there really making things happen. I mean, they got him from the Los Angeles Rams, a guy who drafted. He's responsible for Aaron Donald, Cooper Kupp. A lot of these names we're seeing, like these Pro Bowlers, he put them together. He was in there for a while as the Rams were slowly making that, getting over that hump and really becoming a great team. He's responsible for that team. And him coming in, trading away Stafford. Stafford wins the next year. There are a lot of things that make you want to lose hope in them, but the man drafted Aiden Hutchinson. We've seen how a defender like that with that caliber can really change the trajectory of your team. We've seen a guy like Chase Young. The Washington football team was a great team that year because Chase Young and his attitude. Aiden Hutchinson, I'm not saying he's going to be at that level of play, but he brings that attitude. He brings that kind of that discipline that the Lions need. You draft a guy who I believe slipped a little bit lower due to his injury and may have got him at a good price. Jamison Williams, a great deep threat weapon.
Was he mad when he got drafted, or was he tired?
I think it was just his personality. I really don't see Williams really get that hype like that, but I've seen him get hype before. But I think it's just that face, man, where he's just really in the moment, may not really know how to feel, maybe some anxiety. But I think, I don't think he was that upset, but he could very much be. But in due time, the Lions are making the correct moves in order to kind of get this team over that hump. Campbell believes in his team. Brad Holmes, a guy who knows how to draft. He's a draft specialist. He knows what players it takes to really turn around the team. And I think with the trade and what they got in return from Stafford, a ton of draft picks, a ton of assets to really build that team in Detroit. And I think based off what we saw last season and how they played to the very end and how they beat the Cardinals, played teams well, played hard against the Packers. I mean, this Lions team is in good hands. And I feel like, as hard as it is to believe that, but the Lions, man, they and a ton of teams, man, there are a ton of teams that normally don't draft well at all. But we're seeing A draft. We're seeing draft grades, A's, B's. Like, there was a ton of talent. And I feel like each team really made the most of what their picks were. And teams like the Lions, the Jets got Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson. I mean, just to show that, like, teams aren't playing around no more. They're really taking advantage of these draft picks. And the other side, you have the Dolphins who, they're like, F the draft picks, what Tyreek said in his press conference, and got rid of all of them just to get him. So it's just really cool to see these teams really putting their pieces together with their assets, because a lot of those bad teams last year have a ton of draft picks, and these are the years that it's going to start showing what are they going to do with what they traded to get.
So with this draft class, Terry, how many seasons do you give it before these guys can start having a major impact? Because unlike the NCAA, the NBA, a lot of these guys can come in and get right to it. The NFL is just a different animal. The Aiden Hutchinsons, the Sauce Gardner, shout out to him being from Detroit. How long do you think? You're talking about 2 or 3 seasons in, or is it possible some of these guys can be instant impact players?
Well, some of these guys, I think they could be impact players now. I mean, Chris Olave, a guy who's going to a team like the Saints who
some Ohio State guys. You know how you get them Ohio State guys.
Yeah, I know. He always put them in there real quick.
Hey, and they're balling too. I mean, it's just what we do, hold
on. Hey, but Orlando, I say who could be an instant? You said, well, Chris Olave out of Ohio State.
My thing is, Lazy. This is the thing. He sneak him in, but my thing is that as many. I heard that if you was walking down the street in Athens, Georgia, this past draft, you had a possibility of being drafted.
That's true.
And the first thing come out of his mouth is somebody from Ohio.
Ohio State.
I feel like we love it. I feel like with the Saints and how their offense is oriented, having a receiver like that, a great slot receiver right next.
He cold. Ain't no question.
But I'm gonna get to the whole. I was gonna put the whole Georgia unit itself that's making an impact because you see the Eagles have two of them.
But Terry, let me just please say, I asked a question to you. Who could have an instant impact? And you came with the I
didn't know I was limited to one player though. I had a list.
It wasn't that you was limited. It was the first one. He was like,
I had to.
Lindsay, I got a cousin. My people down in Athens. My cousin called and said he was walking past Mama's Boys restaurant and somebody contacted him from the Lions with a draft possibility. So that's how come on,
just like that. All you gotta do is be down there.
Hey, all I'm saying is that the Georgia unit itself last year was probably one of the best units we've ever seen in college football. It's no coincidence that a lot of those players that got drafted, and we're seeing teams like the Eagles. One was picked first. I mean, Walker. I mean, like it's no coincidence that these players are all snagging them as soon as they can. It's no coincidence. That team was really well built together.
Well, I mean, but that also goes down, even with the NCAA as a comparison, if you go deep in the tournament, you win a national tournament, you're a winner, that's going to draw teams to you. You win a national championship in football, and think about it. If it wasn't Alabama, that they were focused on, they go with the winner. Whoever is putting these guys out here, and in most cases, are most likely to be NFL ready to do that going forward.
And the last thing I'll add too, this is the last thing. What is with Ryan Tannehill saying that he's not willing to mentor?
Hey man, I'm glad you brought that up. That's some complete BS. I call BS on that because if it was the reverse, let's just go there. I'll go there. If it was a black quarterback saying that, if it was Lamar Jackson saying that, if it was Jameis Winston saying that, he'll get scorched. You know what I'm saying? And I even remember when that comment was made. I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was Tannenbaum, one of the commentators. Like, I don't see what he gets from saying that. And then you just set yourself up. So I think it was a stupid move to make. Like you tried to clean it up, and you just don't say that. You just don't say that. It's like this is a team sport. It might be a Tom Brady, Drew Bledsoe type situation where you might just be there to support to get the ring. But I think it's one of those things where it wasn't the best thing to say. And I don't know. Do you think he could have benefited from trying to clean it up?
No, it's once it's said, it's done.
Yeah, once you ring that bell.
He really and the thing is that really check your ego. I mean, they they drafted Willis in the 3rd round, but that doesn't mean that they knew that Willis would drop and they knew that they could pick him up to take your spot in the next year. So it's one of those things where like you don't just draft a quarterback in the first 3 rounds and not have any kind of thought that he may be the starter within the next couple of years. So Tannehill, a guy that even though you got paid a couple of years ago, that doesn't mean that your spot is not in jeopardy. I mean, we're seeing quarterbacks get traded like Darnold. Darnold, they thought the Panthers had a set quarterback with Sam Darnold. He's gone. So it's one of those things where like you, as a quarterback, sure you have your guarantees and your franchise quarterbacks, but when you're a team where Derrick Henry, a skilled player, is your face of the franchise, dude, as a quarterback, you're already a game manager, 1. And 2, your spot is never guaranteed. And when you have a guy with that kind of talent coming in, you're not even trying to be a guy who he can lean on and teach him the things of how to be a pro. Man, to me, that's just giving you that's just giving them a reason to kind of want you out of there. So I would just check your ego, try and have a better season from last year. And I mean, a guy that hasn't shown up in the last season or so, yeah, he has his moments where he's great and some when he's average, but the man has been downright bad in the playoffs. And it's tough to say that you got a guy that's drafted to ultimately take your spot, man. I think it's always the due diligence as a vet to teach the rookie the ways of the force. I say ways of the force.
You know what it also tells me, too, about that quarterback room and that team? Y'all not going to win. You're not going to win. The football guys don't bless you for talking like that, talking crazy, even if you feel that way. Orlando, what do you think about that?
I'm going to leave it all to Terry.
You're all to Savant. That's it. Well, guys, we are at the end of this show. Another great show. It's going to have to hold our folks over for a little while. I hope there's enough meat left on that bone. We will not be on next week, but we'll come right back with that. Terry got some contract negotiations he's doing with Fox. See about him helping Tom Brady come on board. He going to help do some onboarding for Tom Brady. But other than that, it was a great show. I want to thank everybody who chimed in. Thank everybody for the comments, and we'll keep that going. With that, Orlando, you got anything you want to share before you let you get out of here?
Everybody enjoy the warm weather. While it lasts, you know it's Michigan. It could be snowing next week.
Don't be tripping. You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. Terry McCord Jr., anything to say before we sign off?
No, special shout out to my sister. It's her birthday today. She turned 17. Happy birthday, Camille. And happy birthday to her. She, she puts a lot of pressure on me as the big sibling. But just I look up to her as she looks up to me, and I'm glad we get to celebrate her this weekend.
Oh man, that's great. Definitely enjoy. You're definitely a great sibling to look up to. So with that, guys, it's Lindsay Elton with SPS with the crew, Orlando Watkins and Terry McCord Jr. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Peace.